Hi everybody, welcome back to the Desmo Works channel, and if you follow my Instagram account you would have seen I've got an engine, which you're going to see in a minute. We're not going to be putting it into the bike today as I'd originally planned, because due to the current situation I've not been able to get a number of bits and pieces that I need to really effectively put the engine in there. So I don't have any oil and I don't have a fresh oil filter, which means whilst I could stick it in there I can't run it. I also can't bench test the compression for both cylinders, so I don't like to tend to put an unknown engine into a bike unless I've done a compression test to know it's reasonably right. It's come from a low mileage 748 SP. It's been serviced in the last year, so we're just going to check that out. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be doing a check on the serviceable items that should have been changed if it's been done within the last year, and if they look bad I'll replace those out. I'll also do a set of valve clearances to ensure that the valves are in spec, and then put the belts back on and retension those correctly to the in-service tension. So we'll do it about 100 Hertz. That will then leave me in place ready to do, hopefully for the next video, assuming that my oil and filters turn up. We'll stick the engine into the 748 that we purchased a couple of weeks ago, and then that will give me a spare bike that's almost the same spec as this bike. So it won't have the cams dialed in because it's using standard cams, but it will be there or thereabouts. Okay, let's get into this. So here it is, 748 SP engine. It's got standard clutch in it, so we'll be changing it out for a slipper clutch once we can get one. It's got some nice little touches. So it's got a magnesium clutch cover on it. It is correctly spec'd for an oil cooler. Bizarrely, it's got an RS water cooler, a water temperature sender on it, despite obviously having the stock one as well. So I'm not entirely sure what sort of background this might have had. It's got the correct U-stamped heads, so it has come from the correct place. Interestingly, they're 1994 heads, so must have been the first batch of 916 heads that Ducati used to do the original 748 SP. So what are we going to do today? Well, basically I'm just going to carry out my basic checks. So I'm going to put the engine into its timing mark to change the belts. I'm not going to change them because apparently it's been serviced within the last year, so I'm just going to verify that and look at the condition of everything. Once we've got it into the time position, got the spark plugs out, I can then check valve clearances. So I'll do a set of valve clearance readings across the engine, and then we'll work out where we are with that. And then once I've done the valve clearances, I'll put the belts back on and tension those. So let's crack into that now then. Okay, first thing we need to do is get the turning tool cover off. So let's just do that quickly. Now we'll stick the turning tool in. I won't turn that until the spark plugs are out. Spark plugs out. Okay, on the promising sign, the spark plugs do look almost brand new. Very little usage, so perhaps the seller was genuine. Now I've got the turning tool in, what I'm going to do is just take off the side covers to get into the belt. Again, a promising sign. There's new bearings in the fixed and mobile pulleys. There's marks showing that it's recently, yeah, it's fresh because I've just made it dirty. So there's marks showing that somebody's adjusted the timing. The belts look to be almost new. So okay, what I need to do is get this round into the timing position, and then I'll loosen this all off so that we can pop the belts off, and then we will do the valve clearances. Okay, let's just quickly turn that tool round. Okay, so timing marks in, lined up there, lined up there, lined up there, lined up there, so the timing's correct. Just double check that the horizontal cylinder appears to be at top dead center, so it appears that whoever has put it back together has got the timing in the correct position. So we want to do valve clearances. Obviously I need to be able to freely turn the cams, so I'm going to pop off the mobile tension roller and then pop the belts off, and we'll put them to one side. Now I'm going to make sure that I keep the horizontal belt and the vertical belt ready to go back in their correct position so that we don't mess this up. Right, let's just get a 12mm socket and pop that off. Okay, belts are off. Let's take off valve covers for the horizontal cylinder first. Okay, valve covers are off. What you'll notice while I was doing that is that they were quite stuck on. It's because somebody's rebuilt it, not using standard stuff. There's like a sealant and paper seals in here, which is not Ducati standard. So I'm just going to quickly clean that up before we go any further forward. Let's just quickly do that then. All cleaned up. Next thing to do, just so I've got slightly better access to the inlets for getting the feeler gauges in, I'm just going to take off the inlet manifold, which is just 4 nuts. Okay, inlet manifold is off. So you can tell from how we found all the aftermarket gaskets and material that it's definitely had its timing done, or sorry, its valve clearances done recently. So I've flipped the engine up on its end. There's no oil in it, so I can get away with doing this. You wouldn't want to do this if you had oil in it. And that just means that I've got my horizontal cylinder upright, so it just becomes a little bit easier to work with. The other piece to bear in mind with the current position it's in, with the horizontal cylinder being in top dead center, if I need to change any of the shims, then the piston's in a position that will stop the valves completely dropping out, so you don't lose a valve into the cylinder in this position as well. So I'm just going to take a set of readings for this horizontal cylinder, so exhaust and inlet, and just see where we're at. Okay, first set of readings done. So actually the opening rocker readings, or i.e. the unloaded, look to be correct, 0.1, 0.15, so it's standard service limits. The loaded gap shows that we've got a 0.1 for our left intake closer, but our right intake closer is at 0.15 clearance. And then both of our exhaust closers are at spec at 0.15, so we're going to need to add in some shim basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this one valve at a time so that I can get it right. Now that is to say, I've got to take this apart, so what I need to do is I need to pop off the 4 bolts that hold the cams in, and then just remove the cams. So let's just do that quickly. So there you go. all the shims are off, and you'll notice the fact that the valve can't go any lower, so it stays inside your head as long as you have your piston at top dead center. Proof that all the shims are out. Right hand side opening and closing, left hand side opening and closing. Okay, what I need to do is just measure these two closers, as they were slightly out of spec. I'm not going to tighten up these to race specs. I'm going to leave them as the optimum 0.1 and 0.15, so I'm not going to chase going after the 0.05. I'm just going to close up these closers and then close up the right intake closer to the 0.1 spec so that we're bob on. Okay, measured up shims, tells me what the corrected ones need to go in, so I don't need to change the openers as we've seen. I need to get a 2.75 for the left hand exhaust closer and a 2.9 for the right hand exhaust closer. So let me just grab those out. Okay, 2.9, 2.75, and they're remaining as they were. So let's go and stick these back in. Okay, shims back in. I just need to pull that to one side so we can get the cam back in. So I'm going to stick the cam shaft back in. What I found is the seal's been really flattened and has had a bit of sealant stuck around it, so I'm just going to grab a new one of those as well. And let's stick this back together. Oh, in fact, actually, I just need to clean this face as well because it's got all sealant on it. So I'll do that and then we'll stick the cam in. Cam's back in. Unloaded gap 0.15, bang on for the exhaust. Loaded gap 0.25, giving us our 0.15 clearances on the openers and our 0.1 closing clearances. So this side done. Camshaft is torqued back down. I'm just going to quickly stick this cover back on. I've got some spare gaskets for this as well, so we'll put a proper gasket in. And the horizontal exhaust is done. Cover back on for the exhaust. I'm just going to flip the engine round so I've got easier access to the inlet, and we'll make the change to the inlet we needed to do. Okay, so on the intake side we had to do this right hand one. I always just do a little piece so I remember which way around I measured it in case as I have got the attitude wrong on the bike here. So we've got to do the closer in there. I need to change that from whatever it is. I need to close it up by 500th. So same thing again, take the cam out and then we'll pop this intake closer out, measure it, get a replacement, pop it all back together. So again, measured at 3.1, I need to get 3.15. So let me find that and we'll get back to putting that back in. Okay, so I've done the closer and that is bob on now at 0.1 clearance or 0.2 loaded. What I've just noticed though is checking in on the opening shim, it is actually opened its gap, and I suppose that might be because of the different closing shim, because the seat might be slightly worn, or the position of the little valve retaining clips. So I'm just going to have to pop this back off and just get a 5/100ths closer opening shim. Luckily I'd already measured it, so I know that I had a 2.92 shim in there, so I just need a 2.97 shim to close that gap up. Let's just do that. Okay, so intake shims done as well. So valve clearance is set, all at the factory setting, so I haven't gone to the race setting at the moment. Let's just bolt up the horizontal head, and then I'm going to do the same for the vertical head, but I'm not going to film that because it's just the same activity. But I'll come back to you once I'm going to stick the belts back on. Okay, let's get this done. Okay, so I've done the valve shims off camera for the vertical head. No particular issues. A couple of them were out of tolerance. So we had one there, and then one down there that needed adjusting. So it appears all in all the engine was actually pretty well looked after prior to it coming to me. So I'm leaving the head's valve clearances in the standard road type spec, i.e. 0.1 and 0.15s, just primarily because I'm going to do a top end refresh of the engine towards the end of the season, if we get a season. Okay, so what I need to do is get the belts back on. So I've moved the engine into the top dead center mark for the horizontal cylinder, and I've checked that it's there. Just need to move the cams all into their timing positions, and obviously this one's the challenging one because it puts it under tension. So you need to get it into roughly in position, then just lock it off like so. Right, so all the cam wheels are in the right place. What I'll do now is I'll just pop the belts on. Okay, as you'll see, belts just put on loosely. I've just given them an initial tension, not much. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to get the clavis belt tension device and just measure the horizontal one because we're in position to do that. So let's grab that now. So just offer up the detector. That's 112. I'm going to set it to 100 because they're used belts. Bang on. To measure the tension on the vertical cylinder, just going to put the vertical cylinder into TDC. So we'll just do it by measuring roughly there. There we go. And that's only 45, so we need to add quite a bit more in. A little bit too much. Okay, bob on. Going to spin the engine over a whole revolution, get the belts back to their timing marks and check that everything's still correct. Okay, turned it all over. All the marks are in the correct place. So I'm just going to check the tension again on the horizontal belt. .95, which is acceptable, and 95 on the vertical. Okay, belts are on. I tensioned them initially to 100. Just as we've turned them over, they've gone to 95, which is well within spec for a set of used belts. So although they're new-ish, I don't know how new they are. He says serviced within the last year, so I'll take him at his word. What I'm going to do is just tighten these two nuts up now to 26 newton meters, and then we'll get the covers on. There you have it. One serviced, ready to go engine, minus a oil filter and oil. And I'll be changing the clutch. Almost ready to go engine. Okay everybody, so thanks for watching. That's a quick run through on how I check an engine over that I don't know the history of prior to fitting a bike without doing a full rebuild. So today I've checked over the plugs, I've had a look at the valve clearances, we've checked the belt tension, obviously after looking at the condition of the belts, and I've had a general look around the engine and everything appears okay, everything's tight, there's nothing missing. So hopefully once we get the oil filter and some oil, we'll put it into Bumblebee, Yellow Peril, whatever you want to call it at the moment, and then hopefully get it to a running position. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask down below. Chuck us a like for the video if you enjoyed it. I can only apologise I didn't have everything to be able to start putting the bike into the engine, but these are strange times. If you're not a subscriber, would really welcome you to join in the channel. Plenty more content to come. Hopefully some racing if the situation improves. We're currently, I think, we don't have any racing until at least May because of the lockdown, and there's rumours that the government are sort of saying that they might keep us this way until June. So hopefully sort of June, July time I might get back out on track. I'll certainly be doing a track day if I can't do a race. So we will see this engine in that bike running at some point. And hopefully this one working as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. Click subscribe. Hit the like button, ask any questions. See you next time. Cheers then, bye.